Hello, everyone. I have been doing these videos for quite some time in the regard that um, I really like sharing vacuums with all of you. That means something, either because they were part of my childhood or they were just some product that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. So, what I'm going to start out with here is that this is a later version of an earlier model. So, this vacuum, the reason why it's important is because my great grandparents had this machine. And I don't remember anymore because it was 40 years ago if it was one or the other, but they are very similar, almost scarily so. So let's kind of go over to some of the materials that I have that show the vacuum in period literature from the company. I'm going to start out with that and we'll kind of meander through this together. So, what I want to start out with here is the Eureka Color Positive program from 1978-79. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because this machine is featured prominently in here as the 1269. Now, I am almost 110% positive this is the one that my grandparents had. So this one that's over here is a close second. And the differences are very, very minor. In fact, this machine was available through a lot of catalogs. In fact, here is a later catalog from, who is this from? Shamba Hardware in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. But they offered this machine for $189.97. So it's normally $229.95. Now I remember asking my grandfather about this, and that a groovy foxy lady with that beautiful box top, wide stroke, and that beautiful moss green color. Yeah, this is a pretty neat catalog. It offers Hoover, Eureka, some Bissell, and I think that's it. I don't think there's any more in this catalog. Nope. Okay. So anyway, let's go back to the Color Positive program. So there were lots of broadsides that Eureka would give out to its dealers to use for catalogs. As you can see, this is the same lady that made it into the Shamba catalog. And, you know, they had different sizes that you could, I'm sorry, the glare from the light is a little gross there, but maybe you can pause this and read what it says. But essentially, a friend of mine, a very, very dear friend, found me a later version, which is the 1779. And the only differences that I can tell is that it went from a Vibra-Groomer 1 to a Vibra-Groomer 2. The wand on the back no longer had the full channels. It went to the two clips like most of these Roto-Matics did in the 1980s. Through the 1980s, heck, that Eureka used this well into the 1990s, some of these machines, the iron sides as they became. And the blue on this looks slightly bluer, like this is, I've been smurfed blue. I'm sure Eureka had an appropriate name for it, but even the control panel. So this was a fairly higher up model for Eureka. That is the wrong dusting brush. That is the wrong crevice tool. The other two tools, I'm pretty positive, are from this series. But so the bag check indicator and this device here was the suction bleed. Now, one of the things that I've always appreciated about Eurekas is that they have incredibly strong suction. In fact, on this carpeting here, I literally have to keep it there in order to barely push the Roto-Matic across the nap. It is single speed. There's no power switch in back. It is a cordaway, obviously. Single speed up front. And we can tell that it is a much later machine because it has the later button lock that ended up being the common latch for these Eureka machines. So I really was excited to get this. I actually had my great-grandparents' machine. It was always hidden away in a spare room where I was not allowed to get it because sweepers were not for kids. I'm sure many of you heard this, but they were a bit, not quite as nasty, because in the basement of their house, which is where I spent lots of times because they had like a fully finished basement in this huge ranch in the 70s neighborhood of our city, there was a little blue Eureka Princess from, I would say, 1966. It still had Princess in the cursive script that Eureka used. And what I really remember is that I was allowed to use that as much as I wanted, because they figured if I was in the basement and I wanted to vacuum, then so be it. Okay, but this one I knew existed, but I never ever knew where. It's almost like they consistently moved it every time I came over, because I would try and look in different closets. But my great-grandparents were pretty Johnny on the spot and would always nab me and say, get back in the living room, you're not looking for the sweeper. So I eventually found it, though. One night I stayed over at their house, and after some peppermint ice cream and a nice story by my great-grandmother, she went to bed. And I, of course, woke up and I was antsy because it wasn't in my bed. And I got up and I went over to the closet, which was one of those huge, sliding walk-in or, sliding open door closets. And there it was. And it was essentially this machine. I remember they always kept the hose wrapped around the canister. This always stood upright. I saw it a couple of times after this. I'm going to say probably in the next decade, I saw it 5 to 6 times, and I only remember it being used once. And so I pined for this machine because no one else in my family had a Eureka canister. It was either Kenmore canister, there was an Electrolux someplace. I had a great aunt that owned a couple of brown filter queens with the power heads, but very few people in my family owned canisters. So when this came out, this actually came from Kentucky, a vacuum store down in Kentucky. So anyway, couple of neat features: automatic height adjustment, headlight, wraparound headlight. You had the suction bleed there at the end of the hose, plus the one that I pointed out on the canister. I think it was 2.0 horsepower. Let's walk back over here and see what this guy says. Number G, 2.0 peak horsepower. Now the top of the line, which was F, was 3.3 peak. And I can tell you by owning several of these, and I still have a Montgomery Ward's version someplace, those machines were just ridiculously powerful, and they were very hard to push on a lot of contemporary carpets. The shags, the plushes. I remember my grandparents having like this frog green sculptured, and my grandpa was always the one that, the one time I saw it being used, he was the one vacuuming. Because my grandma was kind of his little lady, so he kind of did a lot of the housework, which, surprising for 1982. Anyway, so this machine came around. Oh, I need to finish an open-ended thought that I forgot. So a few years after it was left to me or just given to me. It wasn't left to me. There was nothing in the will. It said, Chad must have the vacuums. It was more like, give them to him because he's a weirdo. So eventually it came to me, along with the princess. The princess went away way a long time ago. It was probably, out of the two, I remember it the least fondly because there was no motorized head. It didn't have the greatest suction because it had a leaky woven hose. I think I gave it to a friend who was starting house, and it probably got destroyed there. This one I kept for a few years. And then this beautiful Fairfax with the same power head without the headlight came into the first vacuum store I worked at, and I wanted it bad. And guess what I used as my trade-off? The Eureka was sold very unceremoniously. I don't remember. I know one day I came into work and it was no longer there. And of course, that's when I immediately went into this panic of, oh crap, too late now. And I've never really seen another one. I mean, I have come across a lot of gems in my day, as you guys mainly know, but I've never really, again, seen this particular machine, which I thought, I'm going to come across another one. There's tons of them, not in Michigan. So anyway, I'm going to run this machine so you guys can finally hear it. I have no idea because I've got the phone facing away from me because, you know, I do my own video work. And just so you guys can hear it, it's going to push really rough on this carpet because these are cheap knockoff Orientals that have zero airflow through them. The only thing that really works on them is my little Miele HX1 stick. Every canister I own, except for maybe my Ultralux. My Ultralux, for whatever reason, can handle them, and so that's what I use now. Even my Kirby, it just sticks to them. Even if I lift it up too high, it doesn't touch it. If I put it down too low, it sticks to it. So anyway, here we're gonna go. So there's the vacuum, now that I've shut up. And we're just gonna you can kind of hear it being stiff. I mean, right now, it feels like I'm pushing a disobedient child for a very deep truth. It's not wanting to go. And I've got that suction bleed all the way open. Now, if I open this one and mess with the connections in that, it pushes slightly easier, but not by much. And then it just tucks to my shirt. So what I'm going to do is you're going to follow me across this beautiful fake as shit plank flooring to get the luxury, that rug will definitely not do well, but into my builder's grade tile in the dining room. So you guys can see the Roto-Matic do what it was meant to, which is clean carpet. And again, I didn't turn the suction back on, mainly because, yeah, it didn't feel like it. It's hard enough to push as is. I just put a brand new belt on here. The one that was on it was looser than Memorial's at a gay club at 2:30 in the morning when the lights come on. It just was no longer holding any kind of tension. And we're just going to leave the other. So you guys get the picture. You guys have seen power head vacuums work. So one of the things that I know about these machines is that they did have a really bad Achilles heel, in my opinion. And I know that my opinion is like many others. It's mostly bullshit, unless proven otherwise. Now, sorry, I'm doing a little bit of moving here, because I'm going to point out its Achilles heel. What I think killed a lot of these vacuums. And we're just gonna unhook the hose here. And I'm going to show you what killed most of these canister vacuums from back in the day. So back here is your latch. The whole top cover leans forward. And on these Eureka vacuums, there was what's called the rubber donut. Now on some models, it actually was here in the actual bag cavity. On others, it was on here. I don't remember what it was on the brandy or the canned hams. I think it was on the top of the nozzle body, but you can already see here that this thing leaks a lot of dirt. And it's mainly because these bag collars, this now not quite so supple bag ring pressed up against this. And if it even remotely pushed back, which you can see this has some, and this just had a bag installed, and I literally put it back in my closet until I was ready to do this video. This is a genuine Eureka dust bag style bead. Even has the original genuine Eureka product. So this is what it was from the get-go. And whatever didn't make it into the, I think this is a 1-ply, maybe 2-ply paper bag, flew back here and hit this piece of material, which I believe this is what Eureka referred to as filter air paper. It really, it trapped some things, but a lot of things ended up getting right around this filter and going directly down into the motor cavity. And I can tell you, as a person who has worked on these machines for the past 22 long years, 26, maybe 28 years, I forget anymore. I was like 18 when I started working on vacuums as more than a hobby. All of these machines have dirt in here, but mainly if I were to pull this up and remove these screws that go around the perimeter of the machine, and we looked on the underside, it would be as dirty as an ashtray and probably the same color. So these were incredibly powerful, incredibly good machines, but if we were to look at them from a current standpoint, they are not at all. Eureka could have done so much better with those bags in the bag. In fact, I did put some glycerin on here to soften that up, and it actually did, because it was hard as that those things that some of us like. So this here, very quickly, is the suction bleed. So as that wheel on top, it moves a slide across, and as it slides across, it opens up more of the suction to bleed out at the top here. And this, I can stick my finger under there. That allowed the suction to bleed out. So this is not a heavily used piece, mainly because I know how they are, but I definitely wanted to share this. I'm very happy to have it, and I do bring it out once in a while to, give it a spin, but for the most part, it has become just one of those machines that brings fun memories and what have you. And now you can also tell too that this is a later machine, I would say post 1980, because a lot of the earlier Eurekas, instead of having that button lock, had kind of a twist lock with a latch. And in fact, if you look very closely at this picture of the 1269, you can see that latch clear as day. So they used the original connector for the Eureka series and then put that latch so it would hold it in. But again, you can see it's like they updated this as necessary. Now, oh, that's something I just noticed. Look at that. The tool caddy is white. This one is blue. The wands no longer have the metal straps, and you might be able to just barely see the metal straps. In fact, right there, come on, get it to, you can kind of see there was a plastic tube that the cord ran up, and there were these metal clips on the wand that held that. It was a much clunkier arrangement. I'm sure Eureka was happy to go to this because instead of, oh, there's my little Mila. Because instead of having those long channels, it was 2 plastic clips, probably much cheaper. And there is my current super driver, because it's the only thing that works super good as a full-size vacuum in this house of different flooring types. But anyway, this was about the Eureka. Thank you for hanging on with me and going through my meandering fun. But it's going back night-night, and thanks again for watching, you guys.